Hi everybody, it's time for another non-featured off-the-rack corset review, and for this review I am going to be focusing on the Timeless Trends Longline Underbust Corset. So here is the front, side, the back, and the other side. So the center front of this corset is about 13 inches, and the shortest part of the corset from about the underbust down to the lap area is around 11 inches. So you should have a fairly long torso if you're going to consider buying a longline corset here. And if you can see the back here where it has about 2 or 3 inches at the top right there, that is why it's so important to do these sorts of corset reviews, because this is a size 24 underbust corset, and I had reviewed the size 24 standard underbust corset in the emerald silk a few years ago, and then I had also reviewed the size 24 overbust corset. Both of those corsets I've been able to close fully from top to bottom. The overbust corset I had open just a tiny bit just to give a little bit more room for my bust area so it wouldn't be too squished. But this longline underbust corset is a different pattern. It has a couple, probably somewhere between 2 and 4 inches less in the underbust area compared to the standard underbust corset. So this is why it's important to compare the different patterns, even if you're buying corsets from within the same brand. Because of this difference in the patterns, I find that the longline underbust corsets by Timeless Trends are much closer to a modern slim silhouette compared to their standard underbust corsets. That said, this corset would be appropriate for pear shapes because of these adjustable hip ties right here. If you have more narrow hips, then you can pull them tighter and close them up. If you have wider hips, you can get probably an additional 6 inches of space within the hips here. So if you are the type of person that you have very narrow rib cage, very narrow shoulders, and you have wide hips, then you might consider this corset.
So here's a corset laying flat, and for the material of this, it has 3 layers, just like all the other Timeless Trends corsets. The first layer here is actually alternating panels. So these panels right here is a floral brocade on black satin, and then these plain black satin panels. Those are all fused onto another twill layer underneath, and then the lining is also in twill. For the construction of this corset, it's essentially a 6-panel pattern, although you can technically split this last panel into 2 here. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and sort of 7 if you count the extra one just at that back lacing panel right there. The lacing here on the hip is between panels 3 and 4 right here. The actual assembly here, it is the same as all of the other Timeless Trends corsets in that the panels are assembled using a lock stitch. The seam allowances are pressed open. It is stitched in the ditch to anchor it to the lining side, which has been treated the same way. And the boning channels, it's double boned on the seams here with the bones sandwiched in between the interlining and the lining layers, which are both cotton twill. And if I show you the inside of this corset here, where it says Black Iris corsets, Black Iris is the same manufacturer as Timeless Trends. It's just that one is for distributors and another one is for the main customers or clients. But on the inside here, you can see that there is very clearly a 1-inch wide waist tape running right through the entire width of the corset from the edge of the first panel right to the edge of that back panel right there. Binding is a standard commercial black satin bias tape that's machine stitched on the outside and on the inside. You can see that it's stitched in the ditch there so that it's neater. On the inside here, you can see that there are also 4 garter tabs total, 2 per side. Usually with the standard length underbust corsets there are 6 of them, but because these have the ties on the side here, then they omitted one of those garters per side. This corset does not have a Modesty panel on the back or on the front here. The overbust corsets do have Modesty panels, but not any of their underbust corsets. The busk itself is about 12 inches long, and it has 6 pins here. All the pins are equidistantly set, so the bottom 2 are not closer together. It is a standard half-inch busk on each side that is further reinforced by another flat steel bone on either side of the busk. But this is slightly more stiff than some of the other flat or flexible busks that I have experienced in some other corsets. This corset has 26 bones total, not including the busk. So you can see it's double boned on the seams here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And those are all 1/4 inch wide spiral steel bones. Then there are another 2 flats here sandwiching the grommets. And like I said, like 10 seconds ago, there is a flat steel bone that is reinforcing the busk right here. Now, the side seam bones are different in the Longline underbust corset compared to their overbust timeless trends corset. In the overbust corset, the side bones here go right up to the top, but in the Longline corsets, this part of the side seam from the waist to the top is not boned right there, and it is boned basically from the waist down to the bottom edge. And the bone here is basically to prevent this part of the side ties from scrunching up if you're trying to tighten up those side seams at your hips. But otherwise it does not particularly add structure to this seam of the corset. Here's a close-up of the grommets in this corset. There are a total of 28 2-part size 0 grommets in this corset, so 14 on each side, and they are sort of not totally silver, they're a little bit darker, maybe a pewter color. Despite the fact that they have a pretty small flange around them, I've never had a problem with Timeless Trends grommets popping out. Like literally, I've heard of busks breaking well before any of their grommets started ripping out of the fabric. And here's a close-up of the underside of the grommet, so you can see that the washer is pretty small as well, but once again, it's holding in really stiff. I do notice that they reinforce the lacing panel, so it is thicker than some of the other panels on this corset, so that probably contributes to something. Some of these grommets have splits in them, but they've otherwise rolled pretty neatly and they don't catch on to the ribbon lacing. And the laces that they use are 1/2 inch wide single face satin ribbon, and they glide through the laces pretty well. It holds the bow very tightly. I like ribbon laces in that they have a pretty flat profile and they're not all that bulky. Now, single face satin ribbon is not as strong as double face satin ribbon, but because this isn't, you know, exactly my highest reduction corset, then it's fine for my purposes. Now, some people who are cinching down 6 inches or more, they might find that in the Longline corsets, the laces are not long enough for their purposes. You know, they open it all the way with absolutely no slack left in these loop areas, and they still can't get the corset on around them. So I recommend, if you are one of those people who can cinch down more than the typical 3 or 4 inches that they recommend, then also buy a length of overbust length laces from their accessories section, because it will really make your life easier when you're trying to get this corset on and take it off.
Most Longline underbust corsets are around $120 on the Timeless Trends website. So this concludes the review for the Timeless Trends Longline underbust corset. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it informative. If you did, then please click that like button and help support the channel. If you have any questions or comments, or if you want to share your experiences with your Longline underbust corset, please feel free to leave a comment down below or post a video response. And I will see you guys in a few days for the next video. Bye.